grief is not caused by loss.
Hmm.
And that's a huge misconception. People think that grief happens to them when someone dies. And grief, like any other emotional experience, is created in the mind by the thoughts that we choose to give our focus to.
Before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate that you decided to come on my podcast, and I'm really excited to hear about all of your experiences. I
Thank
know
you.
that uh, it's been 2015, right? Since you
Nine
lost.
years last Thursday.
Oh my goodness, yeah. You lost your wife and your soulmate to
Oh,
suicide.
we never married, so we were
Okay.
just fiance.
Well, your life partner.
Yes, we both came from families where our parents hated each other, so marriage was a pretty taboo subject.
Oh my goodness. Well, but 26 years is a long time.
Yes,
So,
I'm grateful
and
for every minute of it.
exactly. You have two beautiful kids, right? And you have moved from the deep feeling of grief and sorrow and pain to a life of joy and happiness. And you now help other people do the same thing. You
Yes.
became an NLP practitioner, Reiki practitioner. You are a mindset coach, and so much more. So I'm just so excited to have you talk about um, how you went from feeling that sadness to be able to step into your own choice of being happy. How did that come about? When did that happen? Was this like something that just happened from one day to the other? Was it a choice that you made, or it just kind of flowed over time?
Well, it's a little bit of both. For about 4.5 years, I was drowning away my pain and sorrows at the bar. 7 nights a week, I would go and get smashed, not know how I got home, but the car would always be in the driveway. One day I had a strange feeling, like a draw to go to a different bar, a place closer to home. And the moment I walked in, I felt something that I hadn't felt before. And I made eye contact with this woman across the bar, and my soul came to life. She was with her boyfriend at the time of 3 years, and she got up, walked away from him, came up to me, and started talking. It turns out that she had recently lost her father to suicide. So we had that in common. And there was like an electricity between us that we both felt. We went outside and, had a cigarette, and we both felt this current between us. Uh, about 2 weeks later, she left her boyfriend and moved in with me and the kids. We got engaged. We planned a future. We named our future children. We would sit on the couch for hours staring into each other's eyes. And a week before Valentine's Day in 2020, it was a Friday afternoon. I came home from work and she handed me the engagement ring and she said, "I can't do this. I have to go." It turns out that after doing some research, that it appears that she was my twin flame.
Mhm.
Her making the choice to run triggered a spiritual awakening in me, along with grief and losing my soulmate and all of the traumas in my life. Uh, it was like I woke up one day and I was a different person. It was like everything that I thought, believed, and knew was a lie. Um, and from that moment on, I started to do research on twin flames, do research on spirituality, neuroscience. Why am I thinking these things? Why am I feeling these things? Where do these feelings come from? how can I change them?
Mhm.
And I decided, actually, it was decided for me. It was about the same time the week that COVID shut down the world. My boss came into my office. I was a successful web designer, developer. I was in charge of marketing for a huge company. My boss came in and said, I'm sorry, we're shutting down. I have to let you go. And I felt a sense of relief and joy
Mm.
instead of panic and fear. And I literally stood up. I shook his hand. I said, thank you. I grabbed my stuff. I went out to the car. I drove home with the windows open and the music blasting. And it was such a peaceful feeling. And it was at that time where I said, what am I going to do now? And I felt this urge to help other people get to a place where they understood their feelings as well. When I was a kid, when my parents were going through divorce, I was in a peer counseling group with other kids who were going through divorce. So I always had this ability to talk to others and kind of communicate my feelings in a very authentic way.
Mhm.
So I found a website where I could become certified as a life coach. I learned the business, I learned NLP, I got certified, and things just started rolling from there. I started a new Facebook identity, a new social media identity, and it just grew like wildfire from, posting spiritual memes and whatnot to now having over 12 or 13,000 followers, several
Wow.
groups that I created, one called Learning to Love Yourself on Facebook that has about 3,500 members, a memes page for, positivity and spiritual stuff that has 6,000 members now. And I started last year another group called Life After Loss,
Mhm.
which is not your typical grief support group. When I started coaching, I joined pretty much every grief support group I could find on Facebook, and I started posting my story. And I found that I was getting blocked and banned from these groups for my positivity.
Mhm.
That even the admins in these groups who were there to support people were ruminating in grief, and they were among those who believe that grief has to last forever, that it's love with no place to go, that you'd learn to live with it, all of those toxic limiting beliefs that keep people stuck, chained to the past.
Yep.
So I decided to start a group for people who wanted to experience happiness and joy after losing someone they loved. And in literally less than a year, the group has, close to 2,000 members, from parents who have lost children, people that have lost parents, people like me who have lost their significant others. And it's more of a judgment-free, negativity-free zone for people to talk about the joys in life instead of venting about how much life sucks
Mhm.
and how miserable they are and how much they wish their person was still here. It's more about accepting what is and not ruminating anymore in what was or what isn't. And I've helped literally thousands of people.
And I'm a part of the group, of course, because I found you early on after my son ended his life, and I always saw the things that you commented, and I was quite taken aback at first, and I said, "How can you even be that positive?" To me, because I was so early in my grief, it was impossible at that moment to even imagine that it is one day possible to not feel like that anymore. And every time you commented, and I was getting more and more intrigued by what you had to say. So
It's funny, I actually get that quite a bit. as I said in the other grief groups, people, they go to the grief groups for a place to vent and complain with others
Yeah,
who get it.
sure.
And when I post and comment, a lot of times the responses are very negative.
Hmm.
Uh, People accuse me of fishing for clients.
Hmm.
They accuse me of lying about my loss, that I never lost anybody. And my first response is I block, I don't respond.
Yeah.
If my story is not for you, then, see you later. And then many, many times, 6 months, a year and a half later, I'll get these private messages that say, when I first saw your comments, they triggered the hell out of me.
Yep.
I wanted to hate you.
Yeah.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for planting that seed. Thank you for letting me know that it's possible.
Yeah.
Because now I see that I can choose happiness.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
most of the friends that I have on my Facebook profile are either former clients or people's whose lives that I have influenced in a positive way.
And it's a beautiful thing, and it's so needed in this community. I mean, for the most part, I feel like a huge percentage of the world population will experience some sort of loss at one point. There are
I think
some lucky ones.
100% of
Yeah,
us.
well, you know what I mean. I mean, sometimes people just don't lose anybody close, and then they go, and it's their time to go, and they haven't really lost anybody. And sometimes wonder if they're lucky or if, I'm not sure, but with the grief and with this journey to healing comes such a profound just wisdom and self discovery, that I've noticed. I am not the same person I used to be. Of course, I can't say that I'm at a point in my life after 2.5 years to where I think about my son and everything is fine and dandy. It's not. The tears are still coming, but I am no longer stuck in that deep despair and hopelessness that I'm never going to be able to feel joy again. So I'm moving through that, and it's been such a profound experience. And you are definitely one to thank for that, because I have been reading your posts, your blogs, your website, and uh, yeah, and they really have helped. There was times where I said, I'm just so done with the positivity, you know, because you're just like stuck sometimes, and it's just really hard to get out of that moment, out of that. Oh, you just feel so gross and yucky, and everything just sucks. But I think the most important part is just to be able to step out of that and to just let go. And one thing that I like that you said to me was letting go is just letting go of the grief, the pain, and the suffering, but it's not letting go of the person, right?
Yes. That's a huge misconception with grief because a lot of people believe that the harder you grieve, the more you loved,
Yes.
or that grief is a way of holding on to them.
Mm-hmm.
But grief is not caused by loss.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge misconception. People think that grief happens to them when someone dies. And grief, like any other emotional experience, is created in the mind by the thoughts that we choose to give our focus to.
Yes.
And the brain, as complex and powerful as it is such a simple machine to understand. You have a thought. A thought is just an electrical impulse in the neural pathways of your brain, and you have about 90 seconds before there's an emotional response to that thought. And an emotional response is just a chemical reaction that tells the body what we're thinking. If we focus on that emotion and identify with it for more than 90 seconds, which is the length of time it takes for the chemicals to go from the brain to the body,
Mm-hmm.
creates a physical sensation that we call a feeling. And once we're in that feeling stage, there's a part of the brain called the reticular activating system, which is a filter. and it switches and it creates a focus on growing what we believe in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So we create this cycle of thought. So those thoughts, emotions, and feelings shift into a mood.
Mm-hmm.
And a mood has no time limit. It lasts as long as we allow it to.
Yeah.
And when we become consumed with our mood and we say, I am angry, I am sad, I am jealous, I am whatever, the brain takes that as a literal command and will do everything in its power to confirm. It's called confirmation bias. Once we become so enveloped in that mood, it's created what we call now a mindset. And the mindset is the view that we look at life in general through. And it's my belief and my understanding of grief that grief is just a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way that we choose, and I use the word choose because it's an important word. It's a way that we choose to look at life through a lens of the past,
Yeah.
through a lens of what isn't, what's no more, what's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look through that lens, the brain shuts off the ability to see or experience anything else.
Yeah.
Because essentially, the brain is just an organ floating in the dark in our skull. It has no contact with the outside world whatsoever, except through our five senses
Mm-hmm.
and our perception of reality. So when we're stuck in this grief mindset, it prevents us, it literally turns off our ability to see anything positive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there could be a rainbow, a butterfly, a unicorn, a dinosaur
Yeah.
walking past us, and the brain says, I do not see that. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
All that exists is my pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And in my awareness, my consciousness of that, I was able to tell myself from the observer standpoint, I see you thinking about these things that are creating pain. Why are you choosing to do that for so long? And it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, well, I don't have to think these things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I can be grateful for the 26 amazing years I had with Larissa. And when I think those things, I feel joy. I can focus on my children and the love that I have for them, and my heart feels full. I can focus on the roof over my head, my dog, my cat, my guitars, my car, my apartment, anything that I have now in this present moment that is real, that I can experience with my five senses, and I can feel gratitude.
Yeah.
Everything else is imaginary. The past is imaginary. The future is imaginary. None of it is real. All that is real is what I can experience in this moment. And I trained my brain. It took me a long time. I mean, it's a funny story. Most of my negative self-talk happens in the shower in the morning. And it started, well, it's been pretty much my whole life, but when I noticed it was when I first started changing my mindset. I was still going to the bar and hanging out with the same people. And in the morning, I would have these conversations with myself. Well, what happened? What if I started a fight with this person? What if I didn't say this? Well, what if I talked to this person? What if I said this? What if I did that? And it got to the point where I would yell at myself out loud, shut up, you're in the freaking shower, you're naked, this person is not here with you, stop talking to them. And I would come out of the bathroom and my kids would be sitting at the table having breakfast laughing. And my son, who was about 17 at the time, he'd be like, who are you talking to in the shower, Dad? And I was like, I was yelling at myself to stop the negative self-talk
Mm.
and to appreciate the warm water and to smell the soap and to feel the water on my skin and to be present in the shower without thinking about things that don't exist in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
And after doing that for, about 6 to 12 weeks, it became a new habit.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to argue with myself to stop the self-talk. It was something that I trained my brain to now do consciously, like going to the bathroom.
Hmm.
When I get that urge in my bladder, I don't have to consciously think I need to pee. I should stand up. I should walk to the bathroom. I should open the bath. I don't have to
Yeah.
go through those steps consciously. It becomes a subconscious program that runs for me in the background.
Right.
So now being conscious and aware of my thoughts and regulating my emotions and knowing that I don't have to react to everything other people say or everything that I think. It's more of a natural process for me to just be present.
How has your shift in mindset and your ability to move into the more positive feelings affected your kids?
I see it in my kids profoundly.
Mm,
My son he was probably hit the hardest by grief. He was a mama's boy,
mm,
and just thinking about it chokes me up a little bit.
mm.
His doctor put him on antidepressants because she was of the chemical imbalance theory.
Right. Yeah.
And if mom had it, he has to have it. So let's get him on preventatives,
Mhm.
which is another thing that I've done a lot of research on and I am wholly against.
Same here. Yeah.
But after 3 years of watching my son go from being very popular and friendly to sitting in the dark,
Oh,
alone, no PlayStation, no video games, no phone, just sitting in the dark. Um, I told the doctor I want him off the antidepressants, and I started teaching him about emotions and thoughts and feelings and choices.
mhm,
And, I know you don't feel motivated right now, but you have to choose to be motivated.
mhm.
Um, about 2 years ago, on the anniversary of his mom's passing, he got extremely drunk and his friends had to carry him home. And he said he didn't want to do it anymore. And I had to sit with him the entire night and comfort him. And when he woke up in the morning, he said, "Wow, I really needed that."
Oh, oh my gosh.
And it was done. He was done. He was done with the grief. He was done with the self-sabotaging thoughts.
Mm,
A few months later, he met a wonderful girl. They've been in a relationship now for a year and a half. He actually lives at her house with her parents. He has an amazing job. He's going to be 22 in August. He already makes over 50K a year.
that's awesome.
He tried to do the online college thing and he just said, Dad, this just ain't for me. I want to get a job and I want to do my thing. And I'm all for, my kids learning their own lessons. I don't force anything on them.
Yeah.
So he is a huge success story. My daughter, she was only 3 when her mom passed, so she has very little memory. Uh, I wouldn't really say she didn't experience grief, but not to the extent that her brother and I did.
Yeah.
She knows that she's different. She only has a dad and that her mom is gone, and her friends have moms and dads, but she doesn't miss anything.
Yeah.
In the way that I've brought her up to be happy with what you have and not think about what you don't, because it's not real. It's just imaginary scenarios. You write your story and you feel what you want to feel, you think what you want to think, you experience what you want to experience. And she pretty much adopted my give no fucks mindset. She could care less what other people think. If her best friend says, "I don't want to be friends with you anymore," she says, "Okay, thanks," and walks away. Uh, happened a couple of months ago. Her best friend since preschool had a meltdown and said, I don't want to be your friend anymore. I don't like you. Leave me alone. And my daughter came home and she said, me and Rory aren't friends anymore. And I said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And she goes, it is what it is. I have other friends. And I was so proud of her. And I said, it's okay to be sad and upset. And she goes, yeah, but it's not my business.
Mm.
She wants to think what she wants to think, and it has nothing to do with me. Whatever she's mad at, she'll either work through and come back to me or her loss.
Yeah.
And I was just literally blown away. It gave me such joy to see that the way I'm raising my kids is helping them uh, to be positive.
Yeah. And
This,
more resilient
yeah,
and yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, emotionally resilient, especially because I see that a lot nowadays that the kids lack that ability to be emotionally stable, and that's the scary part. And I believe why so many kids are choosing to go, and it's very really scary. And yeah, that's definitely a subject that's close to my heart, and I keep you know, trying to figure it out if there's a way out of this for, so many of these kids who are suffering and who don't see a way out. But they have to find the right person, somebody like you. And I'm telling you, there's not a whole lot of them out there.
Unfortunately, the mental health industry is still in the Stone Age.
It is.
They're backed by big pharma, 98%.
Yep.
I mean, they're probably close to 90% of the doctors and therapists out there still believe that depression is a chemical imbalance.
Yep.
There's no cure for it, only medicating the symptoms. And, this is something that I realized a while back, and it still gets me. I was watching The Good Doctor on Hulu last night. Every commercial is a pharmacy commercial,
Yep.
and the script is the same no matter what the medication. They make you feel like a victim.
Hmm.
They talk about your condition like it's a plague. And then they talk about the promise of hiding the symptoms from other people. And then they give you a list of things that could kill you by taking this medication.
Right.
And they repeat them over and over and over to the point where people get so brainwashed
Hmm.
that other people are going to judge me. I better hide this better.
Yeah.
And then therapy is open-ended these days because there's no cure. You have to talk about it with me for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Instead of teaching them healthy coping mechanisms, which is the reason why they have depression or anxiety or other conditions. And I call them conditions loosely because, PTSD, ADHD, all these other abbreviations that Big Pharma invented to sell drugs
Hmm.
are just mindsets.
Yeah.
I mean, depression is literally defined as being stuck in the past with the inability to change it and accept it. Anxiety is defined as fear of the unknown.
Hmm.
What if? And people get so wrapped up in the past or the future that they end up missing their entire lives
Hmm.
thinking about things that don't exist.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When you put it that way, it's mind-blowing, really. But it's so simple.
Really is. I mean,
Yeah.
my parents got divorced when I was 8 years old. My earliest memories are my parents fighting. I
Mm,
don't ever remember them happy. My mom lied to my dad about being pregnant so he would marry her, and he resented her for it. They hated each other. And eventually, after about 5 years of therapy, my dad got the strength to leave.
mm,
And I started with my depression and anxiety, abandonment issues, fear of rejection, all these normal childhood traumas.
Yeah.
that I identified with for most of my life. And it affected my friendships, my relationships, my jobs. And I was a victim. It
Yeah.
was my depression, my anxiety, my childhood traumas. And I was literally pouring gasoline on the fire every single time I thought about it. And it wasn't until this awakening that I had, where not only did I heal from grief, but I did the deep inner work, the shadow work, and I healed all of my childhood traumas as well. And I realized that it's not my depression. It was just my lack of ability to cope with and accept and let go of
Hmm.
the things that hurt me when I was a kid.
Exactly.
And most people, they say 90% of society plays that victim mindset. And when the guy in the white coat with the stethoscope comes in and says, "You have this illness," they say, "Oh my gosh, I have this illness.
Yes.
There's no cure. I'm
Yeah.
going to have to take antidepressants for the rest of my life to be less than a full person."
Yeah. That's
And
the scary part. Yeah.
they create that belief.
Mhm.
And then people walk around saying, "I can't do that. My anxiety won't let me. Oh,
Mm.
my depression. Oh, my this, my that, my ADHD, my PTSD."
Yeah.
Now, 99.9% of the population on this planet has PTSD. It's
Hmm.
literally a memory that we refuse to let go of.
Do you believe it's possible for any of these conditions to if there's a choice that you can make, because I know you use that word, and I actually, the first time I heard you say it's a choice, when I was early in my grief, I was like, there's no way this is a choice. It's just how I feel, and there's no other way. How am I supposed to step out of this, right? And I believe that a lot of people feel that way. Um, but then I just said it yesterday on a quick video that I did. And I said, I am choosing to step out of this, because if I don't choose it, I will remain, where I'm at. And I don't want to be there. I don't want, because obviously my channel is also about near death experiences and spirituality. And this whole journey has just brought me to believe that we're not just a human body. We are spiritual beings. And I believe Jaden and everybody else, they see our lives and they're right there with us. And I don't want him to be like, "Oh my gosh, mom, please be happy," and that's exactly what he probably did. But it's so
It's
hard
funny
because
you
we
say
can't see
that,
them.
but it depends on how we look at C.
That's true.
Its sight is one of our five senses.
Hmm.
We don't see anything. There is light and sound everywhere, and our eyes are just little lenses that absorb light waves that go into our optic nerve, and then our brain opens up the memory file cabinet very fast
Yeah.
and says, "What is that I'm looking at?" My preschool teacher held up a blue flashcard with a square on it and said, "This is blue, this is a square, that's blue.
Hmm.
That's a person, that's a car, that's a truck." But it reminds me of that scene from The Matrix, The White Room, where Neo touches the chair and he asks and he says, "So you're telling me this chair isn't really here?" And the response is, "Well, your nerves are telling your brain that you're feeling something, but what you're feeling is just energy.
Hmm.
Brain is creating the chair."
Yeah.
I mean, I believe, the whole spirituality thing just blew me away. I mean, it was like they say, the veil was lifted.
Yeah.
And, for most of my life, I was raised Jewish. I had my bar mitzvah. I went away to college and I was like, none of that bullshit is for me. I don't believe any of it.
Hmm.
So I'd say pretty much for most of my life, I was atheist, agnostic. I believe you live, you suffer, you die, you're dirt, the end. And now I believe that none of this is real at all in any way. It's a dream that our soul is having from spirit, from other dimensions. I don't know if it's an alien playing Call of Duty up in his spaceship and we're just the avatars running
Oh
around
my
shooting
gosh.
and killing each
That'd be
other
awesome.
and being miserable.
Yeah.
And then we wake up and then we do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these people that we think we know are just characters in our movie, in our dream. And we place so much value on the other characters that we forget that we're the main character and the movie's about us.
Mm-hmm.
People have asked me, well, what if you lost your children? And I say, first of all, I don't what if anything,
Mm-hmm.
because that's an imaginary scenario that doesn't exist. And just by thinking it, I'm putting that energy into
Mm-hmm.
the universe and asking for it to come true. So I don't what if anything. But, whatever happens, happens. If it's meant to be, it will. And if it's not meant to be, it won't. I don't put any value or judgment into things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to accept death. I've experienced it a few times since my healing. A very close friend passed away from pancreatic cancer. I didn't even go to the funeral because she's not there.
Yeah.
I sat on my bed, I closed my eyes, I spoke to her, I told her I love her, and I appreciated all the time that we knew each other. And that was it, done.
Mm-hmm.
I had another friend who had an aneurysm and died suddenly. And, I said, hey, thanks for all the good times, the good memories. It was great knowing you. Watch over me.
Yeah.
And, I don't think of people that we lose as gone.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I know Larissa is still with me and the kids.
Yeah.
And she has shown us some miracle, some spooky shit.
Yeah, you did mention that there's a lot of signs that she sends. Yeah.
Signs that not like, oh, a butterfly, oh, a leaf. Shit that blew me away. And even my daughter was like, this can't be real.
Okay, you got to name that now.
Okay, so where we live, there are a lot of county fairs. We're in a very rural area. And 3 years ago, my daughter started going on the alien spaceship where you're stuck against the wall.
Hmm.
She was scared of it her entire life. The one time she went on it, she became addicted. So when she heard the county fair was in town, it's about 15 minutes down the road. She was like, come on, we're going to the fair tonight. It was a Friday night. I checked the weather and it called for severe thunderstorms and strong winds. And I told her maybe we'll go tomorrow. The weather's not so good. And she's like, no, 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 I really want to go. I want to go. I want. Now, what am I going to say to a 10-year-old girl? She's my princess. She gets whatever she wants. So I said,
Let her
hey,
hear
it's only 15 minutes away. Let's go.
that.
So we got in the car. We got about 5, 10 minutes down the road, and the sky started to turn black. The winds picked up. There were tree branches in the road and leaves blowing everywhere. And I said to her, the weather's not looking good. And she said, come on, please, please. If it's raining, we'll come home. So it's only 15 minutes away. So, all right, let's go. So, about 5 minutes away from the fairgrounds, it started to rain. And she's like, she started to get upset. And I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you ask mommy to make the sun come out? And she looked at me like I was completely crazy. And she's like, yeah, okay, dad. And I was like, no, really, I want you to say it out loud. I want you to say, mommy, I want to go to the fair. Please make the sun come out. She kind of mumbled. And I said, Emma, you got to say it so she can hear you. So she said, mommy, I want to go to the fair. Please make the sun come out. Nothing happened. So we get to the fairground, we pull in the parking lot. The rain is getting a little bit harder. People are flooding out of the fairgrounds to their cars. And Emma said to me, come on, let's get our tickets and go inside. So I paid the 89.95 for the two wristbands. We walked through the rain. As we crossed the gate into the fairgrounds, the sky split and the sun came out.
Oh my gosh, I got
The
goosebumps.
sky was orange and purple, and there was a huge rainbow through the middle of the clouds.
Oh,
And she looked up and said, "Thanks, Mom."
oh my goodness.
And then it happened again a few weeks later.
Wow.
We went to another county fair. This one was about 45 minutes away, and it was pouring. I mean, literally, cars were pulled over on the highway because it was raining so bad. And the minute we got there, she said, "Mommy, do it again. Please do it again." The sky split, and there were four rainbows.
Wow.
First time I've ever seen it in my life. There were four rainbows in the sky. People were taking pictures. The ground was soaked. I mean, the pictures I have were both drenched, and there's rainbows in every direction.
Wow.
And it kind of changed our view on death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, of course, we get the normal, we see bald eagles when we ask for them, we see cardinals, butterflies land on our shoulder,
Hmm.
uh, feathers, hearts appearing everywhere, and angel numbers.
Yeah.
Literally, every time I look at the clock, the numbers are the same.
Hmm.
When I go to the store to buy chicken, the price is 5.55. When I look at the odometer on the car, it's three or four numbers in a row. It's almost like I can't escape it. License plates.
Yeah.
Every 444, 666, 777, ILY. I love you. That was our thing. ILY.
Mm.
I see it all the time.
Mm.
And it used to kind of freak me out, but now I just say, "Thanks, honey. Thanks
Yeah.
for the message."
Yeah. I mean, the messages for me are not just the confirmation, but they just, they just bring me that hope, because I have to say, I'm very left-brained and I have a hard time, and I often go back to, what if this is just my brain? What if this is just a coincidence, and
That's why I don't what if.
right, exactly.
Accept it
I'm
for
not
what
there
it is.
yet.
It's funny. I've been following Bashar Daralanka
Yes.
for a while now.
Hmm.
And I saw a video on TikTok that he posted that I shared in the group. And he talks about how we confuse their energy with grief.
Mm.
He
Hmm.
said that when we think about them and feel those feelings, our programmed response is sadness.
Hmm.
We automatically think they're not here. I'm missing them. I'm without them. I'm lonely. I wish they were here.
Hmm.
When what we're actually feeling is them in our aura.
Yeah.
And I've learned that when I think of her, it's her saying, "Hey, I'm here." And
Yeah.
I don't allow that pre-programmed response of "for me."
Yeah.
And it's changed how I look at life in general.
Mm.
Now, you're only 2.5 years out. It took me 5 years to get there, but it's not about time because time, as we know,
Doesn't
is
exist.
words and numbers on the calendar that we invented to get to work on time. It's always now.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, "I'm not ready to let go. I'm not ready to heal. I don't want to be happy."
Yeah.
And they wait for this imaginary time in the future where all their ducks are lined up, but there are no ducks.
Hmm.
There has to be a point where we say, "I choose to stop thinking that way.
Yeah.
I choose to stop allowing the past to dictate who I am today."
Yeah. And that's huge. It's one of the biggest shifts that I've had ever since I heard you say that. Because I never thought it could be a choice, and it totally is. And it takes a while. It's not, and again, like you said, everybody has a different timeline, as far as grief is concerned, as far as your wanting to heal. Because I was also, there's some times where I'm like, you know what? I don't even know if I want to feel better. I just want to be stuck here right now. Just leave me be. Everybody leave me alone and just let me wallow.
And
You
there's
know, of
nothing wrong with that.
course, I
Nothing
think
at
it's
all.
necessary. I think it's all necessary. All these steps are necessary.
Like I said, it's been 9 years for me. That doesn't mean that I don't cry.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean that I don't have those moments where a movie triggers me. And
Mhm.
I took my daughter to see the new Thor movie when it came out, and we're sitting there enjoying the movie. And there's that scene at the end where his girlfriend dies of cancer in his arms, and I lost it.
Yeah.
There was a little family, mom, dad, and three kids sitting next to me, and here I am, hysterical, ugly crying in the movie theater, and my daughter just put her head on my shoulder. And then it was done. I wiped my tears, enjoyed the rest of the movie, and I was like, wow, that felt fucking great.
Yeah.
It felt good.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this isn't about holding back tears. It's not about blocking your emotions that are coming up automatically, but it's about you realizing that you have a choice, that you can um, step out of it whenever you are ready. I can't even imagine the first few months of anybody saying, "Oh yeah, I'm ready," but it's possible. It's possible
I
because
have had
everybody has a different
clients,
story.
I've had clients who, after only a few months, said, you know what, I just don't want this.
And that's awesome. That's awesome. And that is their journey. And nobody should compare their journey to others. And I did that in the beginning. That was also a big mistake. I always said there's nothing worse than losing a child. And because I've lost my parents, my grandparents, and so I was comparing that pain to losing Jaden, and it was just completely different. It was almost as if the other ones weren't even that bad, right? Even though they were,
Mhm.
but losing him was the worst that has ever happened to me. Just like another person who may not have lost a child, but they lost a cat, a dog. That is the worst thing that has happened to them. And my
Yes,
husband said the
exactly.
same thing. This is the worst thing that has happened to that person. So there's no comparison at
No.
all. Yeah.
And that's a big aha moment, because I've had several people say to me, well, you didn't lose your child who you carried in your. No, I
Hmm.
didn't, but this is the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 It's a huge shift. And again, it is all inside of you. You make the choice of what you want to feel like, what you want to believe. And some people are just not ready. They're not ready for that next step.
Well, ready is a belief.
Okay.
You know, it's it's the old comfort zone. It's
Right.
easier to hate
Sure.
and stay in the cycle than to do the work.
Yeah.
And they say that the pain and pleasure chemicals, dopamine and serotonin, come from the same gland, and we get addicted to one or the other, whichever one is more prevalent in our system. Just like you can be addicted to alcohol or heroin or cocaine or whatever, you can be addicted to negativity and grief. And some people allow that addiction,
Mhm.
cortisol and the adrenaline and the victim mindset and the fight or flight chemicals, they allow those chemicals to dictate who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Very-
it's not a conscious choice for many. They say the subconscious mind is 95% of who we are. And the subconscious mind moves a million times faster than our thoughts. That's mind-boggling. I mean, literally, we react before we're conscious and aware of what's going on and why we're thinking what we're thinking and why we're feeling what we're feeling. It's like, and that's why most people think that they are their mind, their
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, their feelings, their emotions. This is who I am. I am this because it's all that's up there.
Right.
But once we get to that place where we can say, we can step aside and be the observer, who am I talking to in my mind? Who am I looking at in the mirror? Who's making these choices? Who am I talking to when I'm in the shower? Is it me or am I not me? And once we can disassociate from our ego, our subconscious mind, our programming, we can bring more of that subconscious thought into the conscious mind and we can be aware that it's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can enjoy this experience a little bit more.
Right. Exactly. And I think a lot of people are, mm, I don't know if that's the right word to say. Maybe they're not willing at that point to do the steps necessary to put in that work because it's not easy. It's, it's not easy whatsoever. And just like
It's
you
funny you
said,
say that because one of the most common responses I get to my posts or comments is easier said than done.
right. And I've said that before as well.
Yep. And I said, well, let me tell you, when you go to the fair, how many people do you see with that giant teddy bear over their shoulders?
Right.
The one person who was willing to do the work.
Exactly.
Everyone else walks around with the flimsy little stuffed pizza or the little freaking dog with one eye from China for throwing the darts at the balloon because that's easy. I can
Right.
do that. But the
Right.
hard work over there, I can't do that.
When people come to you, I know you have a program, right? It's like a 12-week program.
Yes.
Do you feel that some people need longer than 12 weeks or
I guarantee my clients that their goals will be reached in 12 weeks, or I work with them for another month for free.
wow, okay.
And I have never had to go on to offer the guarantee. In fact, I've had several clients drop off at week 10 or 11 and say, let's save the last two for later if I need them.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And it's all textbook neuroscience.
Hmm.
In order to reprogram subconscious habits, it takes repetition, intention, and hard work. And it takes exactly 3 months
Hmm.
to erase a neural pathway in the brain.
Yeah.
It's like I explained it to someone I was on a call with the other day like this. Let's say the neural pathways in your brain, your thoughts, your memories, your thinking are all highways that your thoughts travel to and from your body, your nervous system, your brain. Let's say one day you see a shortcut and you say, oh, look, there's a path through the woods that'll save me 10 minutes. You might not take that path the first time because it looks a little scary. It's dark, there's trees, there might be bears and wolves and mountain lions, but then you start to see other people taking that path. And then eventually the trees get cut down, it becomes a dirt road. And then eventually the more people who travel over it, people being your thoughts, the more that path gets traveled, it eventually gets paved. And then they paint lines on it. And then they put up an exit sign that says shortcut. And now this 4-lane highway that you used to travel is now the path that was easier and quicker.
Hmm.
It takes forcing yourself to take that scary path, the unknown, doing what you don't believe to be true, to strengthen that neural pathway in your brain so that all of your thoughts from now on say, hey, I'm not going that way anymore. That way sucks.
Hmm.
It takes too long. There's traffic. I get frustrated. I get anxiety. I get depressed. People piss me off. I get stuck behind someone in the left lane and this and that. But this pathway here, that's the new way to go.
Yeah.
And through that repetition and conscious intention, we have to be aware of the things we tell ourselves. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're correct. It's a famous quote by Henry Ford. And so many people say, I can't, my grief,
Yeah.
my loss. They're literally giving their brain commands.
Mhm.
I say it's like when you pick up your cell phone, it's very simple programming that we all take for granted. You hit the little phone icon, you punch a few numbers, and then you hit that green button. There's only one thing that your phone can do when you press that green button. Makes a phone call.
Yeah.
Your brain is exactly the same way. When you give it a command, there's only one thing it can do, and that's affirm your command. I saw a video by Wayne Dyer once that really stood out to me. He said, how many times have you woken up with a tickle in your throat? What's the first thing you say? I'm sick.
Yeah.
You're literally prescribing your future.
Yeah.
You're telling your brain, shut off my immune system, stop providing antibodies for whatever is this tickle in my throat is called, which could be just a piece of dust.
Right. Or dry throat or anything.
Exactly. You didn't drink enough water before bed. You wake up with a tickle.
Yeah.
But you say, I'm sick. I'm going to have to call in from work. I'm going to have to go to the doctor. I'm going to have to get a Z pack. I should go buy some Gatorade and chicken soup. You're literally asking your brain to make all of these things come true. And then when it does, you confirm that by saying, I knew it. You go to the doctor. I knew I had strep throat. I just knew it.
Yeah.
But we never stop and say, why is any of this happening?
Hmm.
Oh, it must be a virus or a bacteria, or I caught it. My kids that, all those germs at school. And, it's funny because I actually proved this to my daughter a couple of weeks ago. She came home and she said, I feel like I'm getting sick. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not a feeling. That's a belief.
Yeah.
Change that belief and dictate a different future. So she said, okay, how do I do this, Mr. Smarts? So I took out a shot glass. So I put a little lemon juice, a little honey, a little cayenne pepper, put it in the microwave for 5 seconds. And I said, this is a magic elixir that's going to heal you right now. And she said, really? And I said, would I lie to you? She gave me the little 12-year-old eye roll and she drank it and she's like, ooh, that tasted funny. I like it. I said, now you're going to be better by dinner time. I promise you. And she said, okay. She went in her room, went on her phone, played her PlayStation around dinner time. I said, hey, how you feeling? And she's like, huh?
Hmm.
I feel fine.
Right.
So
Yeah.
she went from I'm sick to I feel fine just by changing the story she was telling herself.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a little bit the lemon and the honey and the cayenne pepper.
Sure.
I got the book, the Lost Book of Herbal Remedies, and there's some
Yes.
magic in there. But it's all the commands that we give ourselves that the brain has no choice
Hmm.
but to confirm.
And it works with just about everything, right? Because I see
Absolutely.
so many people, especially older people, that talk about their illness all the time. So they just feed their subconscious constantly by talking about their
Absolutely.
arthritis or whatever, their pains and aches and
My
whatever.
depression, my anxiety, my
Right, right.
ADHD. I
Yeah.
had a client early on in my coaching who was on antidepressants for about 10 years, 20 years, most of her life. And, one of her problems was I have ADHD. Every time I have a fear of going to the mall because I think I'm going to lose my car. So I don't go to the mall. And I
Okay.
said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you pick a spot and park in the same spot? Take your kids to the mall, write down where your car is. Take a picture of it before you go into the mall.
Hmm.
In 12 weeks, she not only got off all of her antidepressants, she no longer believed that she had ADHD. We learned that her mom misplaced the car when she was a kid, and they had to walk around the entire mall parking lot until they found it. So it was just a childhood experience that she refused to identify, or she chose to identify with and refused to let go of as something that might happen to her.
Mhm.
Never
Mm.
happened to her, but it might.
Right.
So that fear-based mindset, that fear of what if we can't find the car?
Mhm.
She was now programming into her daughters,
Yeah.
and her daughters were missing out on the experience of going to the mall and going shopping with mom
Mhm.
because of this fear of something that doesn't exist.
Yeah. See,
It's
and this is why I feel like it's so important to know that it's possible s- to not have to experience that. And but I think it's just we feel like it's a programming. It's a programming, from early on, and it's just been fed for years and years and years, and boom, you believe now that you have this condition or whatever. And
absolutely.
it's just hard to step out of that. But a lot of people don't even know about NLP, for example.
Well, a lot of people don't know anything
True.
other than what their parents have told them, or the
That's
church,
true.
or the movies, or the books, or their teachers.
It's true.
I read this book called Psycho-Cybernetics, and it was originally written about golf, about sports, and about how before the golfer takes his swing, he visualizes the entire shot. That's why they take those practice swings. They stand there and they swing and they look. They're pre-programming into their mind where that ball is going to go before they hit it. And then they get the hole in one, and people are like, "Oh, you're so good." And they're like, "No, I just used visualization to create the outcome I desired
Yeah.
instead of leaving it to chance."
Yeah, exactly. And people are like, what?
Exactly. I mean, it goes on about how teachers program children to be stupid by saying, "Oh, you're not good at math. Maybe you're good at something else," when the teacher is just not explaining the topic in a way that the child understands.
True.
So you get a bad grade. Oh, I failed math. I suck at math.
Yeah.
Your brain says, boom, you got it. You're right. You suck at math.
Right.
I'm turning off the math abilities in your brain. And, that's how it is.
Yeah.
It's not real. We're not bad at math. Everybody is good at everything. But if you tell yourself you can't, your brain has no choice but to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that story sounds like mine because for the longest time when I was younger, math was just not my subject. And I thought I was just not smart enough to understand it until I had that one teacher in my last 2 years of school where I finally had A's and B's because I understood because of how he was able to convey the information to me, where it
Absolutely.
clicked and made sense. And and just knowing that there's so many kids out there who believe that they can't do something, but yet the right person hasn't come along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it goes much deeper than that, that belief. For example, someone who says, I can't find a job.
Mm,
Just by saying, I can't find a job, your brain turns off the ability to see help wanted signs. You can walk past a row of help wanted signs, but you're too busy looking at the ground because your brain says, life sucks. You
mhm,
can't find a job. You have no money. You can't afford anything. Poor you.
mm.
Don't look to the left. There's a help wanted sign. There's the perfect opportunity for you, but don't look
Yeah.
because you said you can't.
Yeah.
And then they blame there's no jobs.
Yeah.
I can't see any jobs. I can't find any jobs
Mm.
because your brain won't let you see them.
Right. And it's just so easy to fall into that theme of constantly, yeah, not seeing anything and just running your subconscious is just running your whole life and you don't even know it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I notice whenever, just speaking, what I say about myself or what I say to my child or my husband. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to be really mindful what comes out of my mouth
Yeah.
because I'm creating, well, I would say reality with whatever I say.
Yes.
And it's so easy to just say something negative and It's quite interesting because these are the type of things I never thought about before. Again, because I was programmed to just that's just
Yep.
how it is. You live life, we
Going along in
never talked about
autopilot.
life after death or nothing like that.
Yeah,
So, but once you find these once paths open and you actually listen and you see things, coming your way and you take that opportunity, and that is where things can shift.
yeah,
And I've noticed that in my life for sure.
absolutely. They say there's an infinite number of realities happening at the same time. Which one do you want to jump into?
Right. Oh, it's hard to even wrap your head around that one, but yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. What advice would you give someone who just recently lost someone? And how of course, there's a time right after that. Most people are just not open to hearing anything about anything, right? But what advice would you give for someone who wants help and who wants to step out of the grief?
Well, the one thing that I did that I wish I didn't, but it is what it is. Don't avoid the feelings.
Hmm.
I see a lot of people new to the journey in the support group saying, I go to the gym, I work, I I have to keep busy so I don't feel this pain.
Hmm.
And as I explained, thoughts are energy, feelings are energy, emotions are energy. And if we don't actively feel them and express them, they get stored in every cell of our body. They say that generational trauma, they call it genetics, disease, depression, anxiety. They say these things run in the family. And the reason they do is not because of illness or germs. It's because a child can be born with his grandparents' fears
Hmm.
because the grandparent never addressed that fear. So it was stored in their cells, in their DNA, and then transferred down to their children and then their children.
Hmm.
So if we don't feel the feelings, they don't go away. We don't avoid them. We think we're avoiding them,
Yeah.
but they're just getting stored inside of us like a battery. And then eventually, when you overcharge a battery, it bursts.
Yeah.
And, for nearly 5 years, I just suppressed, avoided. I wore that happy mask in front of my kids, my coworkers. Oh, yeah, I'm doing great. I'm fine. And then, 9 o'clock rolled on and I was at the bar, freaking shot after shot, doing drugs in the bathroom, anything to keep these feelings at bay.
Yeah.
But one day I said, I got to feel this.
Yeah.
Have to feel it. And I had a really spooky moment. I was going to get to buy weed from Larissa's nephew. He was like my go-to guy, a young kid. And I hadn't been to the cemetery once in the 5 years. I hated her too much. I resented her for taking her life. I thought it was a choice. I blamed her. I was so angry.
Hmm.
I blacked out while I was driving, and when I came to, the car was sitting across from her grave in the cemetery. And I don't know how I got there. I don't remember making the turn. I don't remember pulling in. I was just there. And I sat in the car for about 15 minutes, hysterical, crying, punching the steering wheel, cursing. I get out of the car with the intent of peeing on her grave. I was screaming, I fucking hate you. How could you do this to your children? And I felt a breeze, a, not blow on me, but blow through me. And I screamed as loud as I could. And I released so much of that negative energy that I was just standing there. And all I felt was love. That 26 years together, I felt her apologize.
Oh, goodness.
And that triggered a change that I am so grateful for, that from that moment forward, I started crying in front of the kids, talking about her all the time, feeling the feelings, facing the triggers, going to the places that I was avoiding, putting her pictures up around my room, watching the videos,
Mm,
thinking the thoughts that made me cry and feel the grief.
yeah.
Eventually, my battery was on empty and the feelings and the pain was gone. And I was able to look at those things and experience those things, and they didn't trigger me anymore. So I guess my biggest piece of advice would be you gotta feel it to heal it. And
Absolutely.
never use the word never,
Hmm.
change it to yet.
Yeah.
You're
That's,
not healed yet. You're not happy yet. You're not loved again yet, but you will be.
yeah. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I think that's really helpful, especially for those who are just in the early stages, especially, and even those who have been struggling for years and who don't see that light, at the end of the tunnel. So,
Well, it's really sad because those that are still stuck, chained to the past, they post the memes,
hmm,
write the books,
hmm,
they misquote famous people. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is a big one. The five stages of grief. She actually did a study on terminally ill patients facing their own death, and her book was called On Death and Dying and had nothing to do with grief,
yeah.
but these five stages that we have to go through. There's only three stages. There's grieving, healing, and healed. Everything else is just an emotion you feel during those three times.
Yeah.
And that, I still see people posting grief is love with no place to go. It never gets easier. You just learn to live with it. And when people see these things, they believe it, they identify with it, and they say, yeah, I was right. I'm never going to be happy again. This is my new normal. This is my life now.
Yeah, and believe me, I was one of these people, and sometimes I still
Me
catch
too.
myself post some memes and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What kind of a message are you
Prescribing your
trying to send
future.
out there? Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
literally prescribing your future.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly where I do not want to be. And also for my daughter, because she's been struggling so much since her brother left. And I want her to see that it's possible to be happy again and to feel joy, true joy, not the fake one, not the fake
Oh,
stuff.
sure.
Yeah,
I was in that fake joy for a long time,
exactly. Exactly.
laughing on the outside and crying on the inside.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, it's not something that happens from, one day to the other. It takes time and but with certain techniques and of course your course, your 12-week program, which I have yet to take. I know it's possible now. I didn't know that back then.
Of course
Um,
not.
I saw, in these groups, I saw people posting, it's been 20 years and the grief is still as strong as it was the day, my kid left. And I was sitting there and I'm like, and I looked at my husband and I said, babe, I can't imagine feeling like this for the rest of my life. I don't want to be here if that's the case. How am I supposed to live life? I will not live. I will just exist and
Hmm.
be miserable forever. And I just couldn't imagine that this is my life, that this is it. That's it. Right? The moment my child chose to leave is the moment my life ended.
Well,
That's what I believed.
that's one of the places where I don't use the word choice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe they choose to die.
Yeah.
Just as people don't choose to grieve,
Yeah.
it's subconscious. It's something that we don't have control over
Yeah.
until we take control.
Right.
People who suffer from terminal depression are incapable. We get widow's fog.
Mm,
It's a common side effect of the fight or flight response.
yeah.
The brain shuts off cognitive thinking,
Yeah.
bladder control. The list goes on and on. When we're in that panic mode, that's why they call it fight or flight. The only two things you can do, the brain sends blood to your arms and legs so
Hmm.
you can fight for your life or
And
run
run.
away.
Yeah. Hmm.
When you've been stuck in fight or flight your entire life, the ability to make that choice to live, to fight, is so depleted that the voices in your head, that negative self-talk,
Hmm.
takes over. Your ego takes over your consciousness.
Yeah.
And I also believe that we all choose our in and out dates.
Yeah. I have learned that through reading a lot of spiritual
Dolores
books.
Cannon is huge
Yeah.
on that. And she says that people who take their lives, that's what they agreed to experience in this incarnation.
Right. And apparently those who are right there with them agreed to that as well.
I
And
agreed
it's a
to this
hard one, a
experience.
hard pill to swallow.
Yes, I agreed to learn this lesson, and
Right.
look at where it took me. I am so grateful for my loss.
Yeah.
And people's heads spin when I say that.
I know. Like right now, I have to, I'm like, I have a little chunk stuck in my throat when I heard that. I'm like, I'm grateful. And I try so hard to view it that way because I feel like I would not be where I am today had this not happened. Yet I always say I wish it didn't because I would rather have my kid back.
Of course, I wish she was still here.
Right.
But when I look at my kids and where we are today,
Yeah.
I wouldn't change a thing.
Right. Right. Oh, goodness. Jay, thank you so much for your
Oh,
time. I could talk to you forever. I can already tell. There's so much on, that I'm sure we could still talk about, but maybe another time.
yes, I look forward to it.
Yeah, thank you. And if I will put your information underneath the video so that people can find you and your website.
Thank you
And
very much.
yeah, absolutely. Because I know that it's possible and I want people to be able to heal and step into the feeling of knowing that they can be happy once again.
Absolutely. What
Uh,
we all deserve, whether we believe it or not.
Absolutely. Yeah,
All
exactly.
word.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a fantastic day.
You too.
Thanks.